Good day, everyone. So today we will be discussing the second part of our understanding culture, society, and politics. No? We'll be understanding what culture, society, and politics. So this is our second lecture series on the senior high subject, understanding culture, society, and politics. Today we focused on society and culture. What is there in society and culture? So the concept of society, what do we mean when we say society? Or yeah, the definition is actually of a society describes society as a group of people who share a common territory, interact with each other, and maintain a shared culture. Now, this concept is very crucial in understanding how human communities organize themselves and develop distinct cultural identities. Because the common territory, the interaction and culture. The origin of the term society also comes from the Latin word societas, meaning companion or associate. It emphasizes the social nature of human beings and the importance of relationships in forming communities. No, as the saying goes, no man is an island. Man is also a social animal. We need others in order to exist. We can live. We cannot exist alone. These aspects, territory, interaction, culture, are fundamental, no, in the study of sociology, no, as they help explain how societies function, how individuals relate to one another, and how cultural norms and values are established and maintained over time. Now, what are the characteristics of a society? So when can we say that it is a society? So there are six characteristics of society. First characteristic is social system. What is a social system? Uh, Social system is a society functions as a system wherein individuals, we interact within a network of relationships, no, complex, no, forming structured patterns that guide behavior and social norms. So, social system, because we are a system where we interact with each other, no, in a network of relationships. You have the family, you have the church, you have the LGU and all. No? Second characteristic is society is relatively large. Societies are larger than smaller social units like families or clans, encompassing a broader and more complex set of social structures and institutions. So it's relatively large, than social units like family is a unit, but society is larger than that. Church is another unit, but society is larger than that. It is a relatively large society. Another characteristic is socialization. One of the essential functions of a society is to socialize its members. That's why in the society we have so many activities with each other. Different social units are having their own kind of activities. This process involves teaching individuals the norms, values, and behaviors that are appropriate within the society. So that's what socialization is. Socialization class is actually a lifelong process. It teaches us to learn and unlearn things, as we grow. You know, Even when we are almost to die, we still learn new things. This is the socialization process. Then another characteristic is endurance. Societies are built to endure over time, sustaining themselves across generations by transmitting cultural knowledge, practices, and institutions. So societies are built to last for several decades. And even today, when in our societies, we can observe that there are practices that are still practiced, which are being practiced by our ancestors long time ago. No? Because we are in a society. We are in a society. No? Most of the time, societies endure. As much as though it could change because of societal change, but um, one very common characteristic is that society is enduring. No? It endures. Another characteristic of a society is of its common culture. No, a society has a common culture. The members of a certain society share a common culture, no, which involves symbols, norms, values, beliefs, and material objects. This shared culture unifies the members and help maintain social cohesion. No? So society has a common culture. That is also one of the aspects wherein we can differentiate society from culture. So society, culture share symbols. No? Well, society is a structure, while culture is the one being shared in the society, and that one of the characteristics that makes them as a society. Then another is geographical territory. For a society to be a society, it typically occupy a specific physical space or territory. So this geographical aspect is significant as it defines the boundaries within the society's culture and how social systems operate. So geographical territory, wherever you go, every society they always have their own geographical location, territory, boundaries. Like in the barangays, like in the municipalities, no, there are always territories. In fact, today with the coming of the digital world, we even have online societies. No? We have online societies that at first glance you might think that there is no geographical territory, but they have a digital territory, no? Digital space, wherein they can interact, transmit norms, socialize, and something like that. So these are the characteristics of a society. Then, what are the major functions of a society? Why is there a need for a society? What are its functions? How does it shape our behavior? How does it shape our consciousness? So, what are the functions? There are five functions of society. You have socialization, you have basic needs, you have behavior regulation, you have social participation, and you have mutual support. First is socialization. Society is responsible for transmitting knowledge, skills, and values to its members, particularly through education and family. Now, this process helps individuals learn how to function within their community and maintain the cultural continuity of the society. So that is one. As mentioned from the previous slide, socialization is one of the characteristics. And it's also one of the functions for the society to socialize its members, because it's only in that way that you're able to transmit knowledge, transmit skills, and transmit values. Now, societies also provide basic needs of their members, including food, shelter, education, and healthcare. Now, this function is critical for the survival and the well-being of the individuals and contributes to the overall stability of the society. Basic needs. Another is, since it is a society, and according to some philosophers, man is uh, man is basically selfish, and all man is basically evil. That's why we need some laws and for us to be moderated. So though there's also a need in societies to have behavior regulations. Societies regulate behavior by enforcing norms and laws through various institutions like the legal system, like the family and the schools. Now, this regulation helps maintain social order and ensures that members adhere to accepted standards of behavior. So, in every society, there is a standard set of behavior. And there is the written rule, unwritten rule of the norms, and you also have written rules. Like now, no, in the barangays, we have ordinances and all. No? Another function of society is social participation. Society facilitates interaction among its members, providing platforms for communication, problem solving, and collaboration. This function allows individuals to engage with one another working together to solve common issues and build a sense of community. So then lastly, another function of society is mutual support. Within a society, members offer support and solutions to each other in times of need. This mutual aid can take many forms such as emotional support, financial assistance, or community efforts to address shared challenges. In brief, these functions illustrate how society operates to meet the needs of its members, to regulate behavior and foster a sense of community. And all of which, these five, are essential for the continuity and the stability for the social system. So these are the major functions of the society. Then historically, there are several types of society. Actually, these types of society, these are we'll be discussing here the evolution, of society, from a very simple one to a more complicated one. So there are two kinds. So first, you have economic or the material systems types of society. So this classification shows the progression of economic systems throughout history. So it started with pre-class society. This is during the time wherein early human societies, before the social classes. And this is the time of the Homo erectus, when people started to go in groups. And then after the pre-class society, you have the Asiatic. This is the time when societies were based on centralized control and communal land ownership, often seen in ancient Asian civilizations. The Sumerian, the Akkadians, the Babylonians. These are examples of Asiatic societies. Then you have also ancient societies. After Asiatic, ancient societies. These are societies characterized by the use of slave labor and the dominance of agrarian economies. And then after ancient, we have the feudal. This is the time when there are lords and vassals, hierarchy. Societies where land ownership is central with a hierarchy of lords and vassals. Feudal system. Um, that is one, feudal society. Another is the capitalist society. Capitalist society, these are modern societies like of today that is focused on industrialization, private property, and market-driven economies. These are capitalist modern societies. However, side to side with these modern societies, we have also democratic societies. Democratic societies, these are societies that emphasize political participation, rights, and freedoms within a capitalist framework. That's what we have here in the Philippines. We have, our societies are actually democratic societies. Now, in the evolutionary view, this perspective categorizes societies based on complexity and social organizations. From the first category, it focuses on the economic, the material systems. While there are also types of societies that societies are classified according to its evolutionary view. So one is simple. These are small kinship-based societies with minimal social differentiation. So actually, they are like one clan living in a society. And then you have compound, larger societies with more complex structures, often including tribes and chiefdoms. Compound, that is called compound. Larger societies with more complex, tribes and chiefdoms. And we also have doubly compound. These are societies with multiple layers of social and political organization, often seen as the ancient empires. Ancient empires. And the example for this is the ancient empires. Another is we also have militant society. Now these are societies organized around military needs with centralized authority and strict social hierarchies, like North Korea. It's like a militant society. And then we also have industrial societies. These are societies driven by industrial production, technological advancements, and a focus on manufacturing. So more on industrialization. And then lastly, another type of society according to the evolutionary view is we have also post-industrial. Post-industrial societies characterized by a shift towards information, services, and technology with less emphasis on industrial production. So that is post industrial. And then there are also types of societies that are classified according to subsistence. This classification is focused more on the primary means of obtaining food and resources. No? So there are societies that are food gathering societies. No? These are the early human societies which relies on hunting, gathering, and foraging. No? Food gathering. Another kind of society under subsistence is you have horticultural. Now, these are societies that practice small-scale agriculture using simple tools. An example for this are the early civilizations, those who are already living along the river banks. Third, you have pastoral. These are societies that rely on the domestication of animals for food and other resources. No? So these are the societies that relies on domesticated animals. No? They have pigs, chicken, and all. And then you also have agricultural. These are societies that engage in large-scale farming, leading to surplus production and more complex social structures. So agricultural, now their focus is more on land, but it's more of a large-scale land, no large-scale land. And then we also have industrial. Industrial, these are societies that focus on mass production of goods using advanced machinery and technology. While they also have post-industrial, same with the evolutionary view. However, here societies transition away from manufacturing to service-based economies, with a focus on information technology and knowledge industries. So from uh, from manufacturing to service industry, that is knowledge industries, information technology and knowledge industries. So these are the types of societies, classified according to three categories, three classifications: economic, material, evolutionary view, and also you have their subsistence. Then one of the characteristics of a society is its common culture. So we need to define, in order to understand a certain society, we need to define and understand what culture is and what are the components of culture. According to Taylor, uh, culture is a complex whole, encompassing the various aspects that humans acquire as members of the society. This broad definition, the definition of culture is very broad. This broad definition includes knowledge, beliefs, arts, morals, customs, and other capabilities or habits that people develop through socialization and interaction within the community. So, culture is broad, because it has so many characteristics, it has so many factors in it. So many factors in it. Now, culture is according based on components. It has two components: material culture and non-material culture. So what are material culture? Material culture, this refers to physical objects, resources, and spaces that people use to define their culture. Examples of material culture are buildings, artwork, tools, clothing, and technology. These are material culture, the physical, the tangible things. The material culture are tangible and are directly observable, reflecting the values, beliefs, and practices of a society. While non-material culture, the other aspect is includes the intangible aspects of culture, such as beliefs, values, norms, language, and symbols. Non-material culture shapes how people think, feel, and behave in their society. It includes ideologies, religious beliefs, social roles, ethics, and customs that guide social interactions and social cohesion. So you can say here that material are these are cultures that are tangible. Like for example, churches, old buildings. These are material culture. However, the belief of the people going in the church, their belief, how they believe practices and all, which cannot be seen, or the underlying force under these material cultures are the non-material culture. The non-material culture. So, in brief, culture is an encompassing concept that shapes human experience and interaction. It is composed of both material and non-material elements that together define the identity and functioning of a society. Understanding culture involves recognizing how these components interact, to influence individual and collective behaviors. So this is the concept of culture, the definition and the components. You have material and non-material. Now, what are the characteristics of culture? No? Um, these characteristics of culture highlight its complexity, and the way how culture influence human societies. So, first is culture is dynamic, flexible, and adaptive. Culture is not static. It evolves over time in response to changing conditions. If it did not evolve, so we might have our clothing would be the same with before. This adaptability allows cultures to survive and thrive, as they encounter new challenges, technologies, and influences. For instance, cultural practices may change with technological advancements or shift in social norms. So, cultural practices like today, before our form of conversation is face to face, but today we already have social media with technological advancement. So, because culture is dynamic, flexible, and it's also adaptive. Yeah? Then culture is learned. No? Culture is not inherited. No? That when you are being born into this world, you already have the culture. No? It's inherited. No? It's not biological. No? So, but it is acquired through socialization. Socialization, the one that we are been mentioning from a while ago. No? From a young age, individuals learn their culture's values, beliefs, and behaviors through socialization or interaction with families, peers, educational systems, and media. Now, this learning process continues throughout life. So even until we are about to die, we still learn and unlearn. This enables people to function within their society. Learning and unlearning. That is learned. Culture is learned. How is it learned? We will be discussing that later. Culture also is shared and symbolic among members of a society. Creating it creates a sense of collective identity and belonging. Symbols such as language, these are language is one symbol. Gestures or rituals, they play a crucial role in representing and communicating cultural values and norms. These symbols help unify people by providing common points of reference and meaning. That's why different symbols, like for example, hand gestures. For us, siguro in the Philippines, in our culture, we believe that this hand gesture is a peace sign. Yeah, but this symbol might not be a symbol of peace, for other culture. It depends. No? But however, culture is shared and symbolic within only a particular culture, not from a different culture. Then culture is systemic and integrated. The elements of culture are interconnected and work together as a cohesive system. Changes in one aspect of culture can lead to changes in others, because like it's like a part of the body, that everything has its purpose. For example, economic shifts can influence social roles, which in turn may alter family structures and educational practices. Now, this interconnectedness ensures that culture functions as an integrated whole. So, for example, before it's only the father working, but because of economic pressures, today even the mother is also at work. Even the mother is also at work. Then you have pattern social interactions. Another characteristic. Um, This culture provides the norms and rules, that guide behavior and social interactions with a certain society. Now, these patterns of interaction help maintain social order and cohesion, you know, and so cohesion by setting expectations for how individuals should behave in various situations. Now, that's why when we are in our community, in events, we are expected to behave like this. In the church, we're expected to behave like this. No, all depending on culture. No, now, yeah, norms influence everything, no, from everyday etiquette to more significant social roles and relationships. So yeah, so social interactions. No? Now, in brief, culture is a dynamic, learned, and shared system, no, that integrates various elements to guide social interactions and adapt to new circumstances. Now, understanding these characteristics helps explain how culture shapes human behavior, and society as a whole. So, understanding the characteristics helps us explain, and understand society as a whole. So, in order to understand society, you have to understand its culture first. Now, what is the importance and what are the functions of culture? Why is there a need for culture? Now, the role of culture in structuring society and guiding individual and group behavior, no, is you have three. No, you have first you have social order, you have identity and belonging, and you have behavior prediction. So let's discuss this one by one. Now, in social order, culture plays a crucial role in shaping social relationships and maintaining social order. Through shared norms, values, and expectations, culture establishes guidelines for how individuals should behave, and interact within a society. That's why we have to be proper, in a community, in a society. These cultural guidelines help to create a stable and organized social environment where people understand their roles and responsibilities, reducing conflict and promoting cooperation. That's why there is social order, because you know where your roles are, you know your responsibilities, you know where you should be at. That's why culture, one of its function is social order. Another function is identity and belonging. Culture provides individuals with a sense of identity and belonging. By participating in cultural practices, rituals, and traditions, people connect with their heritage and the larger community. This connection fosters a sense of pride and solidarity, helping individuals to feel part of something greater, greater than themselves. Cultural identity can be based on factors such as ethnicity. What is your ethnic? Are you a Mamanwa? Are you a Bajau? Nationality, Filipino, religion, or language. And it plays a key role, in shaping your personal and collective identities. So that's one function of social order, and then you have identity and belonging, because you belong to that certain culture. Now, another is because of that, another function is behavior prediction. Your behavior can be predicted. The culture helps predict social behavior, interactions, by providing a framework of expected norms and behaviors. Now, when individuals share the same cultural background, they have a common understanding, on how to act in various situations, making social interactions more predictable and harmonious, because we share the same social behavior. It's predictable, and harmonious because we are at the same page, we are on the same line. In brief, culture is essential for establishing social order, providing a sense of identity and belonging, and enabling the prediction of social behavior. Now, these functions contribute to the stability and the cohesion of societies, helping each individuals understand their place within the social structure, which is very complex, and how to interact with others effectively. So that is the importance and functions of culture. Then what are the elements of culture? No? So a while ago we discussed the characteristics. No? Now we will also discuss in passing the elements of culture. No? So first you have symbols. No? These are objects, gestures, or images that carry specific meanings recognized by people within a culture. No? They can range from flags to religious icons to gesture like a handshake. No? Symbols are powerful because they convey complex ideas and emotions. No? Like for the good morning, Koreans, no? And the Japanese, arigatou gozaimasu, thank you. Why do they do like this? Why do Filipinos do not do like that? These are symbols. No? And then another is language. Now, language is a structured system of communication that allows people to share cultural knowledge, no? Ideas and emotions. No? It is through language. It's very fundamental to social interaction, no? And the transmission of culture across generations. The language is does not only facilitates communication but also shapes thought processes, no? Influencing how people perceive the world around them. No? Because culture and language they really go hand in hand. No? Culture could not be transmitted, culture could not be shared without language. Then you have technology. Technology, these are that includes tools, techniques, and methods that people use to manipulate their environment and solve problems. It reflects the practical knowledge of a society and influences how people live and work. So as technology evolves, it can drive cultural change also by altering how individuals interact with each other and their surroundings because of a new technology that is put there, instead of the locals doing those stuffs. But this time, I think a technology can be uh, can replace humans. No? Then you have values. Values are the shared standards that a culture holds, regarding what is good, desirable, or important. No? They provide a sense of what is right and wrong, and a guide to decision making, within a society. For example, values like freedom, equality, respect for elders, which is Filipino value, can shape society's laws, no? Social practices, and individual behaviors. No? While you also have belief system. No? Every culture, every society, we have our own belief system. Beliefs are the convictions or accepted truths that people in a culture hold about the world, about life, about existence. These beliefs can be religious, like our different churches, philosophical, like how the philosophers conceived it, or based on cultural traditions. They influence how people interpret their experiences and interact with the world, often providing a foundation for moral judgments and cultural practices. And lastly, we have the norms. What are norms? Norms are the rules and guidelines that dictate how people should behave in specific situations. No? How we behave in specific situations. Now, norms include folkways, mores, and laws. Now, folkways are the informal norms, that dictate everyday behavior, such as our etiquette, our manners. No? When we violate folkways, it may lead to social disapproval, no? But not severe punishment. But uh, you will be dealt accordingly with the marites. No? And then you have mores. Mores are stronger norms that are considered essential to the well-being of the society. No? Violating mores often leads to more serious consequences, no? Such as legal penalties or social ostracism. It's a little bit stronger than folkways. And then you have laws. These are formal norms that are codified and enforced by a governing body. The laws are established to maintain social order and protect the rights and safety individuals. So these all components, symbols, language, technology, values, beliefs, and norms, they work together to create and sustain the cultural fabric of a society. They guide behavior, facilitate communication, and help individuals understand and navigate their social world. So that's how important culture and how also and how also important each element, no, of culture, each element of culture. Then how do you acquire culture? No? How is culture being transmitted? No? How do we acquire culture? Now, there are three concepts, no, through which individuals learn and internalize cultural norms, values, and behaviors in a society. First, we have imitation. No? This is, I think, this is very common, no, to all of us. No? It's a basic form of learning, where individuals, particularly children, observe and copy the behaviors, actions, and attitude of others around them. This process is crucial in early childhood development as it allows individuals to quickly acquire social skills, language, and cultural practices by modeling the behavior of parents, peers, and other role models. That's why in our respective families, most of the time we act like our father, we dress like our mother, something like this, because we imitate, the elders, we imitate our parents and our role models, even our favorite actors and actresses. Sometimes we imitate them. That's imitation. It helps integrate individuals into their society by ensuring that they adapt to the common practices and norms of their culture. Another, you also have indoctrination or suggestion. Indoctrination involves formal and informal teaching methods used to instill specific beliefs, values, or behaviors in individuals or individuals. No? This can occur in structured settings like school, religious institutions, or through informal interactions within family or peer groups. So you are being told what to do. No? Indoctrination can be direct, such as through explicit teaching, or subtle, slowly, such as through repeated suggestions that shape an individual's worldview. No? The goal is to ensure that individuals are able to internalize the cultural norms and the values of their society, reinforcing, of course, social cohesion and continuity. Then, last mode of acquiring culture is you have conditioning. Conditioning is a learning process, where behaviors are reinforced through rewards and punishment. And that's why in the community we have first prize, second prize, we have awards, no, for the most clean purok and all. No? Positive reinforcement, no, such as praise or rewards to encourage the repetition of desired behaviors. While there is also negative criticism, no, wherein if you are doing something that is not in according to your norms, you are being to call this, you are criticized or sometimes punished, no? And you are, yeah, the people around you will discourage you not to not do it again. No? Conditioning plays a significant role in socialization. It helps individuals learn from what is acceptable and what is unacceptable within their culture. No? Over time, this process leads to internalization of societal norms and contributes to the development of self-discipline and social conformity. In brief, these methods, imitation, indoctrination, and conditioning, these are very essential in transmitting culture across generations and ensuring that individuals conform to the societal norms and values that maintain social order. Each method plays a distinct role in shaping behavior and helping individuals integrate into their cultural environment. These are the modes on how we acquire culture. But most of us, we are here, no, in imitation. Especially when we were young, we just follow and we just imitate. And then, yeah. So that's it. No, that's the modes of acquiring culture. Then we also have adaptation of culture. How do we adapt to culture? These concepts describe various mechanisms through which cultures develop, change, and interact with one another over time. One concept here we have parallelism. Parallelism refers to the phenomenon where similar cultural developments or innovation occur independently in different geographic locations. This happens when different societies facing similar challenges or environmental conditions develop tools, practices, or social structures without direct contact with each other. For example, um, in our history, in our ancient history, the development of agriculture in in the Fertile Crescent, the Mesopotamia region, and in Mesoamerica. No, that is example of parallelism. No, they geographically they are not in the same place, but both of them developed agriculture. No? Then you also have diffusion. Diffusion is the process by which cultural traits, ideas, practices, or technologies spread from one society to another. It's just like water now flowing from a certain area diffused to a larger space. And this can occur through diffusion can happen because of trade, migration, warfare, or other forms of contact between cultures. That's that's in the context of before, but today diffusion can also be done through mass media, not through social media. That is one instrument or one channel where diffusion, wherein our culture can diffuse to other people like us, not being colonized by the Korean novellas and all. No? We become uh, attracted to their culture and somehow we follow their culture. That's diffusion. So diffusion can lead to the adoption of new practices, no, the blending of cultures or significant cultural changes. Societies incorporate foreign elements, no, into their own culture. And then after diffusion, you have the convergence. No? Convergence refers to the process where different cultures and societies begin to adopt similar traits or practices and converge, cultural convergence. Then you also have fission. Fission is the process by which single culture society splits into two na tunga no na bahin na divided. So instead of being one, they've been divided into distinct groups. No, these are done because of sometimes there is conflict, no? Internal conflict or migration, no? Or environmental pressures. So that is diffusion. No? You have also acculturation. Acculturation occurs when individuals or groups from one culture come in contact with another culture and begin to adopt same traits. Then you also have assimilation. This is a process in which a minority group gradually adapts, no, to the customs, attitudes, and behaviors of the dominant culture, no? Often losing aspect of its original identity in the process. No? And does it sound familiar? We are trying to assimilate because of globalization. Now we are also trying to assimilate different cultures, and sometimes we lose sight, or we lose our being Filipino, no? Our Filipino identity because of this assimilation thing. No, and then lastly, you have accommodation. This refers to the process where different cultural groups coexist peacefully. No? Peacefully, by recognizing and respecting each other differences. No? So, different cultural groups living in one area, but they accommodate each other. They accommodate each other. They accommodate each other. So these are the adaptation of culture. Then we also have causes of cultural change. Now, what causes cultural change? So first, you have discovery. Now, when you find something new, whether it is a new idea or a natural resource, or yeah, the discovery of technology, the discovery of social media. So this can cause cultural change. Another is invention. It involves creating new tools, methods, or technologies that didn't exist before, but like the introduction of the cell phone, no? It changes our culture. Like in the introduction of AI technology today, it leads to cultural change. Another is you also have diffusion, no? As mentioned earlier, diffusion is the spread of cultural change, ideas or practices from one society to another. This process can occur through various means, no? Migration, trade, social media, no? It's there. And then another is colonization. It's the process by which one culture imposes its values, beliefs, and practices to another. No? just like what happened when the Philippines are still being colonized by the Western countries, no? And yeah, that's colonization, imposing one culture over another. And then another is rebellion or movement, no? When there are insurgencies. Rebellions and social movements involve the active challenge and resistance to existing cultural norms, no values or power structures. Now, these movements can lead to significant cultural change by questioning the status quo. No, conflict theory by Karl Marx. No? It can lead to development. So discovery, invention, diffusion, colonization, and rebellion, these are key drivers for cultural change. No? Now, they highlight how cultures evolve, adapt, interact with one another, often leading to significant transformations in society. You know, because culture is changing, it's dynamic, you know, it's adaptive. Understanding these processes provides insight into the dynamic and ever-changing nature of culture. No? So that's why there is culture change. And then we also have three different cultural orientations. Now you have ethnocentrism. It is the tendency to judge other cultures by the standards and values of our own culture. No? This is the belief that our culture is superior than other culture. And that is ethnocentrism. And you know, this is not a good uh, orientation, no? Because you can easily get into trouble with this, no? Because you believe you always criticize other culture, no? Saying that their culture is wrong while your culture is right. It's not the case. It's not the case. No? Then you also have xenocentrism. No? Xenocentrism is the preference for the culture, products, and ideas of another society over those of one's own. No? So, for example, maybe some of you, no, in this K-pop age would say, it would have been better for me to be a Korean, you know, because I like their culture, I like their products. That's xenocentrism. You know? This attitude can lead to the devaluation of our own cultural heritage. You know? That's why it's very dangerous, you know, because later on we become assimilated to them, and we will lose our cultural heritage. No? That orientation. That is xenocentrism. Well, lastly, we have the cultural relativism. Cultural relativism is an orientation, a practice that of understanding and evaluating a culture based on its own values, norms, and practices, no? Rather than through the lens of another culture. Now, this approach encourages empathy, open-mindedness, and a deeper appreciation of cultural diversity. Now, this orientation is what we should have. It's what we should have. Because we become more understanding to others because of this. Now, these three represent different ways, no, of perceiving and interacting with cultures. No? Ethnocentrism can lead to bias and conflicts. Xenocentrism may result in cultural alienation, and cultural relativism promotes understanding and respect for cultural differences. This attitude significantly influence, no, how as, no, individuals and societies approach cultural diversity and intercultural interactions. So these are the three different cultural orientations. Now, to conclude, society and culture are deeply interconnected, no? Each shaping and being shaped by the other. No? Together, they provide a framework within which human behavior is understood, influencing how individuals think, act, and interact with others. Society refers to the organized groups of people who share a common territory and interact with one another. No? It encompasses the structures and institutions like family, education, government, you know, that organize relationships and provide the context for daily life. Society establishes the rules, norms, and roles that guide behavior, helping to maintain order and cohesion within a group. While culture, on the other hand, consists of shared beliefs, values, customs, and practices that members of a society create and pass down through generations and generations. It includes both material aspects like tools and buildings and non-material aspects like language and values. It shapes how us people perceive the world and what we consider important and how we express ourselves. So the interconnection between society and culture is very vital because culture provides the meaning and identity that individuals and groups rely to navigate social structures. It's very important, the interconnection between two. Society in turn ensures the transmission and reinforcement of culture, creating continuity and stability, and the other way around. No? Now, what is the significance of this? No? Understanding the concepts of society and culture is crucial for several reasons. First, it enables us to navigate our social life. No? It helps individuals navigate the complexities of life, from understanding social roles to interpreting cultural symbols and norms. And then another is appreciation of cultural diversity. Now, recognizing the interconnectedness of society and culture allows for a deeper appreciation of the diversity of human experiences across different societies. And another significance is its insights into human behavior. By studying society and culture, we gain insights into the factors that drive human behavior, including how social structures influence individual choices and how cultural norms shape collective actions. Right? Society and culture are essential to understanding human behavior. It provides context, how we live, interact, and make sense of the world. Understanding this enables us to appreciate the richness and diversity of human life and from the different cultures. So that's uh, our discussion for today. No, quite much, no, quite much. But I hope you get to understand what's culture, society, and what are the importance of having this. Now I have also here guide questions for discussion. One, two. You just read this one. How does the concept of society? And then you also have here 3, 4, 5. Okay. So thank you and have a pleasant day ahead for all of us.